What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Video Homicide, back with another movie review / recommendation. Today we're going to go back to the year 1966 to take a look at another film directed by Terrence Fisher. We've got Dracula, Prince of Darkness. So this is now the third installment in the Hammer Dracula film series, and it's been probably like 20 years, maybe more, maybe 25 years since I've watched this film. Way back in the day at the old man's, going over there, like I said, going to my dad's on the weekends and just binging a bunch of movies, everything from The Blob to, Lucio Fulci's Zombie to the Hammer Dracula films, the Universal films, and pretty much everything in between. Movies like Colors were a staple in the house. Clockwork Orange, I know I've said this a million times, like I watched that so young that I'm very much desensitized to a lot of fucked up stuff, and I find humor in a lot of really twisted situations when it comes to movies. So and I don't blame my dad for that. As a matter of fact, I thank him because, I remember the first time I went to a buddy's house and we watched a movie. It was Bad Boys Part 2, and buddy's dad like fast forwarded us like a couple scenes, and I was like, what? I was like, that's nothing. That is nothing. I think Heavy Metal, the animated film, is more explicit than Bad Boys 2. I mean, yeah, sure, there's a lot of swearing, there's references to drugs, there's nudity and stuff like that, but like I'd seen fucking, like I said, Clockwork Orange, I'd seen a bunch of like weirdo movies from the 70s that were very much like, sexualized. Like, I mean, like my dad wasn't showing me like straight up porno when I was a kid, but if he was watching a movie, if he had movies he wanted to watch, those are what we're going to watch, you know what I mean? And all those fucked up haunted shows. But again, the Dracula films, the Frankenstein films, and like to me, like, this is why I like James Rolfe, okay? I know you can say what you want about that guy at this point in his career, but at one point, like, this guy was, it was almost like he had the same sort of upbringing in terms of movies. Like, you sort of watch like a lot of the classic shit first. Like, I remember watching Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, The Mummy, specifically those four films. Like, some of my earliest memories are watching those. But same with Clockwork Orange. Like, Bad Alex. Like, let's watch Bad Alex. Let's watch, my dad would always say when we would come home from the store, because he used to live above a variety store, but it was overpriced, so we'd walk down the street, get our shit from the store, and then come back, and then Buddy working the store would see us coming back and would be mad because he was also the landlord. But he was a fucking cocksucker. He used to rat on me because I was chronically skipping school back in high school, and he would tell my dad, he'd be like, your son don't go to school and all this bullshit, and I'm like, hey, fuck your whole family, okay? Now, when we would come up the stairs, he would say, he would go like that. This is when I was a young kid, and I knew, like, oh, make the sign of the cross to fucking kill the vampire. Or he would say brains, and then you have to like make it look like you're loading a gun and then shooting him in the head. Or like the silver bullet, rip the earring up. Like, there was this whole fucking movement. I love the old man, honestly, he showed me a lot of good films. And this is one of them. Although I don't personally own this film, but I remember parts of this movie. So basically, the third installment, we don't got Peter Cushing, but we do get Christopher Lee back, so that's a plus. The story is basically about these four would-be travelers, like, traveling the countryside in Germany on like, they're from England or some bullshit, and they end up getting told not to go to this castle. Like, there's this castle, blah blah blah, and they're just told against it. And this priest comes out of nowhere. Well, actually, like, in the beginning of the film, this priest sort of stops this would-be vampire slaying happening. He's like, no, Dracula's been dead for 10 years, blah blah blah, you're fucking paranoid and all this stuff. Well, it turns out Dracula is still around in essence, because these people, against the town's wishes, they end up going to Dracula's castle. Well, kind of by chance, right? Like, they get dropped off by the fucking, the cart master won't go any further, and then all of a sudden here comes Dracula's fucking cart, picks him up, takes him to the castle. Food's laid out, booze, dope, mushrooms, the whole fucking, all the bells and whistles are laid out for them. But the one girl's like, I have a bad feeling about this. A bad feeling. And at this point we're in the 60s, so like the chicks go like in these Hammer films, like they go from like looking straight 50s to like now we're talking like mid 60s. They got the hairdo, all that stuff. Of course it's still set in like Victorian times, gothic and all that shit. It's a great looking film. The castle looks awesome. Not dirty enough for my liking. I like my Dracula castles to be very filthy and rotten, but like, you know, like some parts need to be more inviting than others, as Bela Lugosi would say. So, or roughly he says that. Now, the interesting part about how Dracula comes back to be in this film, I think is interesting, because what happens is one of the four tourist people, he ends up getting taken out by the, you know, the, what do you call him, the butler of Dracula's castle, who's like, you know, my master's been dead for years, but he always wants it ready for guests, basically waiting so he can be resurrected. And it's cool because like he ends up getting down to like this cellar. He gets fucking killed, stabbed, and then the butler, he uses like this crazy crane contraption, which I'm sure is like an actual thing, to lift up the body over Dracula's coffin. Then he like pours his ashes into the coffin, like in a nice urn, like a nice fucking like $3,000 urn. He pours it in there, and then he drips the blood. He cuts the guy's throat off camera, but there's a lot of blood being spilt in this one. Especially in that scene, it's like a lot of fucking blood just falling on it, and then Dracula sort of, you know, like you see like the form of a skeleton, and then a whole bunch of fog comes in. It looks really cool. It's almost like the end of Blackula, but in reverse. You know what I mean? So, and then you see the hand come up, and Dracula's back to life. So, takes out some of these assholes, and you know, it comes down to this one couple, and the guy's chick ends up getting stolen, and the main guy, if you want to call him that, he teams up with this priest from the beginning of the film that has a gun and all this shit. And the ending of this film, because it's kind of like, to me this one was kind of a quickie, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, there wasn't a whole lot to it. So all of a sudden it's the fucking end of the movie, and Dracula is killed in what I consider my least favorite way so far in the three films that I've watched. So in the first one, he gets killed by Van Helsing with the cross and the curtain coming down. The second one, the windmill makes the sign of the cross. Now this one, he ends up walking on like some ground where there's running water underneath, which is a Dracula, a thing that'll kill Dracula. And this is the thing that I remember of the movie when I was a kid, him falling into the water like that. And it's like, that's it? That's how Dracula, like that's one of the ways Dracula dies? I don't know. I just didn't really remember. Like I remember the scene, but I just don't remember like, you know, that being the end of it. So again, it's a good film. It's a Christopher Lee Dracula film. You're gonna get some awesome Christopher Lee faces, his bloodshot eyes. Him like there's that one scene that I mentioned in Horror of Dracula when he first, you know, when you first see him as like the pissed off Dracula. They kind of mirror that shot in this film, but it's like got a bunch of reds behind it. His eyes are really red, and it's awesome. So, you know, it is obviously a must watch if you're going through this Hammer history of Hammer horror film, to sort of broaden your knowledge on this stuff, because to me Dracula is one of the staples of cinematic monsters. You know, he's the monster. But well, not the monster is fucking Boris Karloff Frankenstein, but I mean like he's Dracula. And I gotta say it's been my least favorite so far, but I am excited because the next one in order of chronologically, the next one in order is what was my favorite when I was a kid. So and I haven't watched it in like 20 years, maybe even longer. Very excited to check that one out. So I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you leave a 666 in the comments. That was Dracula, Prince of Darkness, 1966. Have a lovely day. Adios.